everybody. I have been speaking for 25 years, and today I'm actually going to share a story that I have not fully shared publicly in my entire career. I'm here to talk to you about what it will take to be a change maker in a Me Too world. So I want to bring us to where my change making and activism really grabbed hold. I'm going to bring us back 1994. Now listen, I'm well aware that a majority of the people in the room were not born yet, but let me just hear you if you were alive and well in the 90s. Okay, well, enjoy your part of the 90s on this lovely slide, but I want to throw you back to 1994. I was a senior at Penn State University, and it was the first time that I had ever experienced institutionalized sexual harassment. It came in the form of something called the Mifflin Mob, which started as a tradition on campus where guys in Mifflin Hall ran naked through campus the spring semester of finals. And what it ended up evolving into was hundreds, if not thousands of men and some women mobbing and running through campus and grabbing women's body parts and screaming sexual phrases at women and demanding to see their bodies strip in their dorm room windows. My freshman year of college, I was studying in the library on my way back to the dorm, and I was caught in the Mifflin Mob. I didn't know that that was a tradition on campus. I didn't know clearly to expect that. I was groped and I was grabbed and I was terrified. And at that time in 1994, remind you, no cell phones, no social media, and no network to talk about this issue, to frame it or to talk about it. But we did boycott it and protest it on campus. And by the time I was a senior, much like the organizing committees here today, bringing everybody together to have a conversation, when I was a senior, I called MTV News. And MTV News was producing a show at the time called MTV News Unfiltered. It was a You Shoot Them, We Air Them news program. So if you can imagine, I was sent 2 giant cameras. I had to go undercover on my campus to talk about what was happening. I had to send the footage back to MTV. They edited it, and then it aired on the program. And I have that clip to share with you today.
You tell us your story.
We lent you a camera. Check it out, look. New shooter.
We air it.
It's unfiltered. Can't make this stuff up. I wasn't recording any of that.
Hi, I'm Allison Stewart. And when we asked you to call, we didn't expect to get 8,000 calls. We managed to narrow it down to 7. And our first story started with this phone call.
I'm a senior at Penn State University, and I have a story about institutionalized sexual harassment that happens the Sunday before finals week. 600 to 800 men run around campus screaming sexual slogans and phrases at women and demanding to see women's naked body parts.
That was Jessica Weiner, and she was talking about a tradition at her college called the Mifflin Streak, a tradition she was out to stop.
Being a woman at Penn State University has its ups and downs. For the most part, we outnumber the men here, but it's still a pretty sexist atmosphere up here. There's still the notion that boys will be boys.
I thought the Mifflin Streak was the best time I had all last year living in the dorms.
The Mifflin Mob originated in 1977 by some men in Mifflin Hall, which is a male residence hall. It started out with a few men streaking through the women's dormitories. Now, if the men are no longer naked during this tradition, they are instead demanding that the women be the ones to strip in the windows. I absolutely believe it is institutionalized sexual harassment on the part of the university administration. The women are instructed by their resident assistants to pull down the shade, to turn off the lights. The dormitory motto for this evening is pull the shade on harassment. Ignore it and it will go away. You can't ignore it. It sounds like an ocean of people outside. It's actually a night of terror for many women.
How the hell is it threatening to women?
My freshman year, I was stuck in the mob. My breasts were grabbed, my butt was grabbed, and the whole time I had many hands and many faces telling me to take it off.
I think it's best tradition in the hall, and I think it should be kept up at all costs.
This year being my senior year, I decided that I had had enough of this tradition at Penn State, and we just called an all-out war on campus. I mean, we papered the campus from head to toe as much as we could, put our posters and flyers everywhere. Something drastic had to happen. We had to have a huge protest. The Mifflin mob must end.
My name is Jess Weiner. I'm a co-organizer of this rally. I'm a fourth-year student who's sick and tired of the Mifflin mob. Woohoo!
Standing in the group that we had amassed of 100 people with our candles, waiting for the mob was extremely tense. We started to wonder, well, it could be any minute now, and that was really frightening. But after 2.5 hours of waiting, we realized, you know what? There wasn't going to be a mob at all. It almost felt too easy that we had won. But the fact of the matter was there were so many police out because of our protest. The mob didn't have enough men to run this year. We had actually stopped the Mifflin mob from happening. We actually accomplished what we set out to do, and that is just a fantastic feeling.
So the mob didn't run that year, and after MTV aired that episode, I was approached by women all over the country who had said they had similar experiences on their college campus. But remember, it was 1994. We had no way to connect to each other or know what to call it. We didn't have a hashtag, and we definitely at that time didn't have a movement. But I share this with you today because this is the signature moment for me that inspired me to turn to a career as a social entrepreneur focusing on the business of empowerment. I found a way to turn this into a lifelong career of talking about and working with women and girls all over the world. I've had the incredible opportunity to work on 2 groundbreaking campaigns. One is the Dove Campaign for Real Beauty, which you heard earlier, and then my friends and I at Barbie have been working on changing Barbie's body and evolving the conversation of representation for women and girls worldwide. That moment for me showed me that there was power in the media, but there was certainly power in shared storytelling. So I've been a part of the Brentwood Conference since its inception. I'm always excited to come back and speak, but today actually held a different charge for me because today was about talking to you about the change-making opportunity that we have right now. And I know by the virtue of the fact that you're here, that you are all change makers. Maybe it's something that you want to change personally, maybe it's something that you want to change professionally in your schools, in your homes, in your community. And I also know when you hear conversations from experts and women in different industries and fields, you might often be thinking about how you might get there. What does the roadmap look like? I also know as a change maker, we struggle with our own fears and our own insecurities. And so I wanted to bring today a conversation about 3 things that I think you can do as a change maker now to begin to evolve and create more of a revolution in our world. So what do you do when you want to change something, either personally or professionally? For me, there's 3 go-tos that I always employ. Number 1 is I define my why. It's incredibly important for me to know why I'm doing something. As a student at Penn State, I knew I had to do something. I didn't know what, but I knew why. I knew because I didn't want any other woman on campus to feel the way I did. So as you sit here today and you meet and you network and you feel inspired by all these amazing people, think about your why. What is it that you'd like to change and see differently in the world? That is your guiding North Star. The second thing is you cannot do this alone. So I know that evening when we stopped the mob from running, that was not just me, that wasn't just MTV, that was a whole community of us who with our collective voices stopped and started a systemic change at our university. You have to build your esteem team. And so this is not an army of people, this isn't about quantity, this is about quality. So ask yourself, who do you ugly cry with? Who's got your back at all costs? Who shares your values and your vision for the world that you want to live in? That can be your esteem team. They're fellow activists, they're teachers, they're mentors, they're parents, they're friends. But we cannot do the change alone. So building an esteem team is really important. And then lastly, this is probably the most important. We stopped the mob from running that year, and the year after, and the year after. And then when that group of students graduated from Penn State, that generation, the mob started again. When you change make, you have to be prepared to take a risk, and you have to be prepared to fail. I had a failure. I thought absolutely in 1994 that I would have, by telling my story and gathering our community together, stopped sexual harassment on college campuses. I clearly know now, living my life and living in this world, that didn't happen. But just because you have a failure or a setback doesn't actually dictate the success of your efforts. Being a change maker is a slow process over time. And now you have not just time, you have a movement, and you have the ability to be your own CEOs of your media empire. Because by taking a risk and learning to fail and expecting to fail, you have something to share and something to give. We learn through our resilience. So I didn't stop that mob forever, but I stopped and then started a whole university and campus program that now is committed to eradicating sexual harassment. And it continues to take hold and it continues to take time. So what you do may not look like success right away. And oftentimes when we think about changing something, we are waiting for the right time or we're waiting to be perfect. And I'm here to tell you that that never happens. The time that we have is right now. So as CEOs of your own media empire, you now sit on smartphones where you could have recorded that, minus those 2 giant camera cases I had to carry around in the 90s. You have a community of people, not just a hashtag. You have voices and bodies and stories and outlets that you can create the movement with, and you already are. So I want to underscore that the change-making process, whether it's only going to stay personal for you or whether you want it to become a profession, is absolutely possible. And today of all days, as you sit in this room and you hear these stories and you meet other people, think about what change you wish to see in the world. And then look within and start to change it first within yourself. We cannot change the world that we want to see out there without first changing ourselves. It is both what I call an evolution and a revolution. For short, I call it Evo-Revo. You need the small moments that lead up to those really big moments of change. So if you would have asked me back in the day, if I would have thought about marching with my sisters and brothers and talking about this publicly, if you would have thought or told me that there would be a Me Too movement, a Time's Up movement, a moment right now in our culture where we are looking at systemic change as a macro problem, as a problem that we all share and collectively are going to solve, that system has to break down and the rebuilding starts with us. So back at 19, 20 years old, sitting in that university, I could never have imagined that I'd be here today sharing that story on such a public platform with women and men who are still experiencing the same things. So my last piece of advice and lovingly sharing with you is that everything that we are experiencing today has momentum. It starts with us, it continues with us, it grows with us. So you are all change makers, and I wish for you to take advantage of those opportunities today to continue to fight and raise your voice and take action on the things that you most believe in.